Hi, everybody. Hope you guys are doing good. It's hot today. Oh, my cat. Doing. It's so hot today. It's like 30 degrees. It's a lot. So I forgot. Well, so actually I didn't really forget. I for some reason thought today was Wednesday and it's not. It's actually Thursday. I don't know. My memory is really off and has been for years, but wow. I guess just, stuff going on and whatnot. I just forget things. So I apologize for not going live yesterday. I seriously thought it was Tuesday for some strange reason. Because I said it that I would go live every Wednesday, at least, because I want to finish this book. So my bad. I will be live again on Wednesday. I think I'll make a thumbnail and yeah, get that started so that I have a reminder. Hey Amanda. Hey Cool Gamer. Hey Colleen. Hey Rody. Hey Luna. Hey Autistic. Oh no, I didn't hear about that. I've been out most of the day. Hey, Teresa. No, I didn't hear about it. I'll have to. Oh, no worries, Autistic. You were alive yesterday? I don't know. My days got screwed up for some reason. It's happened to me a few times. It's weird. I don't know. I felt like seriously, I thought today was Wednesday. This week must have flew by fast. Like I don't even remember when Monday now. Hey, Kimmy. All right, I'm gonna start on this book. Oh, okay. She just heard about an hour ago. Oh my God, 15 people passed, and it was a handicapped transit. Most are seniors. That's a lot of people. That's awful. So much going on in Canada, right? Especially with these fires. And when I heard people are starting them, I mean, why? We are on chapter 7 on page 68. Now we're at the wedding part. You thought today was Friday? Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one because so much lately. Oh, I don't know how many times I don't know. Sometimes you get stressed, right? And I think that's what happens. And I'm just like, I need to sit the hell down and just breathe. So, actually, I have a question. When do you guys think that Kate is going to show her face? And what do you guys think that happened? I don't know what to think. I'm thinking, at first, I was thinking she got another one of those disgusting boils on her head because she's unclean. And, so it was another staph infection. But the thing is, she went live and did videos and everything else when she had that fucking horn. She didn't care, like, at all. You think lip fillers and Botox? But she still goes live with that, though. She'll wait a couple days with the lip fillers, I find, and the Botox at a usually, yeah, it's just in her forehead, I think. You know what I think, actually? I think that she's doing the Botox herself because apparently you can do that. So I think that because she doesn't know what the hell she's doing, injected herself and it got infected like really bad. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, it'd be amazing if she got that goddamn chin fixed, but I think she loves it. Yeah, me too. It's usually yard work or grocery shopping. Yeah, all my family left, so I'm kind of here by myself. We do have a beach though. It's over a mile away from us, walking wise, but it's nice to go down there for the day. Yeah, that's that damn boil thing that she had from her staph infection, from dirty makeup brushes. I remember, like, it just exploded, and then her whole face up here was swollen, and she went live anyway. She didn't care, like, at all. Yeah, I do believe that she does it herself. I'm don't quote me on it, but I'm quite positive she said that she can do it herself, or she did do it herself. No, we probably never will have it. Can you imagine we come back and her chin's like normal? I'd be like, "Oh, yes," because I'm sick of looking at how could you I'm sorry, but oh, having a chin that goes that way is not normal, and then the next day it goes that way? No. She won't come on until she looks fine, exactly, and I don't will ever know what happened to her. That is not an ingrown hair. It just isn't. No. I'll never believe that. I think it was another staph infection and it got even more infected probably all over or something because she injected herself. Because like I said, you can do that apparently. So I'm wondering if that's what happened. She tried doing like the lips and the forehead and just mucked it all up. Probably used expired filler, because she let her son's medicine expire. Her face looks like it's crumbling at times. It's like her chin implant is affecting her whole yeah. Well, her teeth down here, they're gnarly looking now. Her nose is so big from I believe from drinking. It's like a big honker. And yet the mouth is like and the chin, the lips don't line up. Nothing lines up. I mean, instead of getting Botox and, lip fillers, I'd be getting my chin fixed. I don't know. You would think that would be, every time she says like an M or a B, like you could see the chin. It looks like it's gonna pop the hell out. I don't know about crumbling. In other news, I posted a short 20-second video of my puppy showing off her It's just that oh, that sexy thing. I like that you changed your photo to stick to the puppy awareness for the meningitis. That's crazy that I had that, and your dog had I still like, wow, I did not know dogs could get that. I know, all the people with the big lips and the Botox and stuff like me, I will never get fillers on my body, never, because, well, I don't wanna look like KJ. And plus, I've seen, the celebrities and stuff, and all their faces are just ballooned out to hell. I don't wanna look like that. I wanna look as normal as myself as I can, but I will use, like masks and scrubs, and I will use, creams, like facial creams. That's it. Yeah, she does need to lay off all that. Maybe I should show off my body. Nah, don't wanna scare you. Yeah, unless it's for medical reasons, yeah. I don't want it because I don't know what the filler is, but let's say it's some sort of form of rubber or plastic or whatever. I don't want why would you put something in your body that's not supposed to be there? Your your body's gonna react to it, I would imagine, maybe in a few years, but maybe a couple of months. I don't know. I just don't think it's healthy to be injecting anything into your body, like at all, with stuff that's not even human. Like, nah. I know you can get Botox apparently for, migraines, and I was learning about that, and I said, "No, I'm not doing that." Not that I had the chance, I never asked about it, but I was reading about how you can get Botox to stop migraines. I don't care, I'd rather I guess I don't wanna suffer, but I'm not getting Botox. No, I'm scared it's gonna lead to cancer or something. Okay, so we are on chapter 7, and this one is called The Wedding. So last time I read last week, what was it? Rachel and Becky were both getting married. Okay. So I'm just gonna maybe read the last paragraph. Rachel says, "My nerves are so agitated. I didn't know if I'd be able to get any rest that night. I put my nightgown on and got in bed, but I soon realized sleep was far from me. I got up and went to Mother Amy's room. She was one of Father's younger wives, just 2 years older than me, and we become close. Please put me to sleep," I said. She always knew how to make me relax. Of course I will. This is my last chance to do it, she said. I lay on her bed and she rubbed my arms and legs, and that way she had. Sleep finally came and relieved me of my anxiousness for a few hours. Exactly, Sally, right, so you're 71, yeah, and a 30-year-old, like, Just they destroy their faces. It's awful. I know they think probably at the time, "Oh, I'm gonna look young, this is gonna be great," but some people overdo it. Like, look at Farrah Abraham. Oh boy, there's quite a few actresses out there, they don't look right. Yeah, there's makeup and skincare products, exactly. Like, I don't do the contouring or anything, I wanna look as normal as I can. The only thing I really put on is eyeshadow, and mascara, sometimes eyeliner, and a little bit of blush, but I really don't wear I don't I don't like using, like, Cover Up or BB cream or anything like that. I don't like putting that all over my face as well, just for the fact that it covers your pores, and I just think it's gross. Your face can't breathe, so I don't do the contouring or anything. Jeopardy is going on. That's awesome. Alright, you have fun. I got forfeit probably the first time in 20 years, I don't step on my nails. Yeah, see, that I agree with, Queen's Donny. So the first time that you don't step on your yeah, I hear ya, that's gotta be painful. Wow, you must feel so much better. I don't think I have any wrinkles, like, I know my forehead is it's got lines in it, yeah, whatever. Alright, so now we're at chapter 7, the wedding. So I want you to get close to your husband quick. Ask him for a baby ugh, really? Already? Yeah, you do? I figured I would, I'd feel great. I want you to get close to your husband quick. Ask him for a baby tonight. Father had said in his office the morning of the wedding. How could I ask a man that I don't know a question like that? Father was waiting for an answer. Will you do it? I hesitated. I didn't like making promises I knew I wouldn't keep. I'll try. No, not try. Do it. I looked down on the floor, then back at father. Do I really have to? Yes, I want you to ask tonight so you can get close quickly. I was very reluctant and said, okay, I will, and left the office. I'd already spent more than an hour getting ready, putting on the traveling dress Mother Brenda had stayed up all night sewing for me. Mother Jennifer did my hair, way too tight. I was still worried about what Rich would think of me. I knew he had two other ladies already. I decided I couldn't be much shoddier than them, but now father had made this daunting demand. When father and I left his office, Becky and David were in the hallway. I could hear a lot of commotion in the dining room. Father waved Rich over. The grandmothers asked if you could walk in there together so they can enjoy seeing you. Becky and her man went in first, and then Rich took my hand in his. I watched, I finally watched that documentary on Warren Jeffs, The Keep Sweet. I was not prepared for that 12-year-old and Warren Jeffs speaking that was recorded and what he did to her. I was not prepared. I broke. I mean, I broke. It was bad. I knew it was going to be bad. Like, you know it. You're prepared for it, or at least you think you're prepared for it when you're really not. I'm 39 and I've been told a lot of time, plus I'm immature, so I've been told that I look a lot younger than 39, which 39 is nothing. That's like still baby age, right? And they have been told I look young too. I've been using base cream, just even normal Neutrogena or St. Ives, whatever. Freaking cat hair. Um, so I've been using that every single day since I was like 14. So I'm assuming that's what helps keep my wrinkles down. So yeah, I watched it and it's wow. So Rich took my hand in his. My heart did an extra 10 beats. His hand was so large, I felt awkward standing so close to him. We walked into the dining room, and the grandmothers oohed and awed. Rich walked me back into the room and let go of my hand. I need to get the trailer ready, he said. I stood in the hallway, not knowing what to do next. My oldest sister, Marianne, came over to me. Rick's truck is down by Uncle Seth's house. You'd better go. I don't dare. Marianne laughed. Come on, I'll walk you down there. My next oldest sister, Sandra, was standing by her uncle nephew's ride. Sandra, what should I do? What do I say to him? I asked. Just get in the truck. It will work out. Yeah, exactly, Zuna. I walked down the Rich's truck and climbed in on the passenger side. I was relieved that he wasn't there. I looked out the passenger side window and waited. When I heard Rich get in on the driver's side, I looked over very quickly, then returned my gaze at my window. Rich started the engine and we set out. As we rounded the corner by the school, Rich's sister Jenny saw us and started jumping up and down. No one outside of Father's family was supposed to know we were getting married, but Jenny seemed very excited to learn our secret. I wonder why no one's allowed to know that they were getting married, that it's so secretive. I want to know why. It's because deep down they know it's wrong? Or is it supposed to be a big surprise for everyone to be like, "Oh, that's amazing. Yay!" Because I don't think it's a yay. Rich stopped the truck back at grandfather's house and father approached. Rich rolled down his window. Rachel, what are you sitting clear over there for? On the way back, you sit by your husband, father said, pointing to the center of the bench seat. I was about to spend 3 hours alone with the stranger I was about to marry. I couldn't think of a thing to say. Rich was silent too, which was a little surprising since he'd been through this twice before. We were headed for the Hot Springs Motel in Nevada, about 150 miles north of Las Vegas. The motel had been purchased by members of the church in 1997, and it was where all of our weddings were conducted until 2004. It wasn't fancy, but it was private, which was useful, especially when underage girls were getting married. We must have been an hour into the drive when Rich finally spoke. Rachel, do you play piano? He said. I do, but I'm better at the violin. Those were the only words we exchanged for the whole ride. So it sounds to me like he may be a little bit nervous too. At least I'm hoping. There's got to be something, you know, in both these people and all of them that screams, this is not right. So that was the only words exchanged for the whole ride. When we arrived at the motel, I found Becky a sobbing mess. I felt like weeping too, but I decided that Becky was crying enough for both of us. That was the most terrible ride, Becky said. I felt the same. There were 6 or 7 weddings that day, and ours were to be the last two. Father was himself taking 2 new wives. Marianne, Sandra, Becky, and I were told to go to our designated room to get dressed and wait until it was our turn to get married. While I put my dress on, I said, Sandra, you have to help me. What do I say on the ride home? Help me think of something. Sandra was lying on the bed, scratching her chin, and thought, ask him about his accident. What accident? When he wrecked his Jeep. Oh, right. I heard something about it when it happened 3 or 4 years earlier. Rich had broken his neck and had spent a long time in the hospital. It wasn't exactly happy newlywed conversation, but it would have to do. None of us could think of anything for Becky to ask her husband on the ride home, but we all tried to get her to stop crying before the ceremony. Feels so bad. Wow. Even while she put her beautiful wedding dress on, while she undid her hair and rebraided it, the tears continued to flow. That is so sad. Around 2 o'clock, Uncle Isaac knocked on the door. We were ready for the girls. We followed Isaac to room 15, where the weddings were always conducted. Father and grandfather Rulon were there already. It had been more than 3 years since grandfather's stroke, and it showed. He didn't speak during the proceedings, just sat there quietly looking on. There was an empty chair next to Rich, and an empty chair next to David. Becky and I took our places next to our future husbands. Father called Rich and me up first. First, he showed us the marriage grip. A marriage grip? What? Formerly called the patriarchal grip, or the sure sign of the nail. We clasped our right hands, locking our pinkies together and putting our index fingers on each other's wrists. I could feel Rich's large hand trembling. They have a freaking handshake now? Sorry, the marriage grip. Hey, Shella. I tried to listen carefully as father and the words of the marriage covenant to Rich. Brother Richard, do you take Sister Rachel by the right hand and receive her unto yourself to be your lawful and wedded wife for time and all eternity, with a covenant and promise that you will observe and keep all the laws, rites, and ordinances pertaining to this holy order of matrimony in the new and everlasting covenant? Brother Richard, do you take Rachel to be your wife? That would be my first clue. This isn't normal. You want me to marry my brother? And this you do in the presence of God, angels, and these witnesses of our own free will and choice. I do, Rich said. That's not true because none of the girls had any choices whatsoever. And not only that, he actually had the balls to say, to be lawful and what receive her unto yourself to be lawful and wedded wife for time and all eternity, a covenant promise that you will observe and keep all the laws, rights, and ordinances pertaining to the holy matter. Yeah, wow. So of course he says, I do. Father then said the same words to me. I do, I said quietly. By virtue of the holy priesthood and the authority vested in me, I pronounce you, Richard, and you, Rachel, husband and wife for time and all eternity, and I seal upon you the blessings of the holy resurrection with power to come forth in the morning of the first resurrection, clothed in glory, immortality, and eternal lives. And I seal upon you the blessings of kingdoms, thrones, principalities, powers, dominions, and exhalations, with all the blessings of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and say unto you, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, that you may have joy and rejoicing in the day of our Lord Jesus Christ. That was a mouthful. Then father said to Rich, you may kiss the bride. It was a very quick and awkward kiss. I could feel my whole face blush and every nerve in my body tingle. Then it was over and I was married. We returned to our chairs to witness Becky and David's nuptials. As soon as the proceedings were complete, Becky and I went back to her room to change out of our wedding dresses, and then all the newlyweds and their families gathered outside for refreshments. It was nice to feel the fresh air against my skin after all the tension I had felt over the last 24 hours. We sat with father and our family at a long picnic table, enjoying the day. Father was still excited about giving away his two daughters. He seemed to have completely forgotten his own new ladies. Rich and David, Becky's man, did not join us. They were getting things packed up for the return trip. I had a feeling they were glad to be out of the way for the time being. When father announced it's time to head back, my heart dropped into my tummy. I dreaded another long, silent ride with Rich. I could see plainly that he was nervous as I was. That's gotta make her feel better, though, that she was nervous, and or not only was she nervous, but he was nervous too. Oh, no worries. Yeah, like I remember reading or maybe watching it somewhere that they can say no, but it's like blasphemous. You never say no. You can, but you might not want to if you know what's good for you type of thing. So I could see plainly that Rich was nervous as I was, which only made it worse for me. Really? I would feel like better about that, being like, okay, I'm not the only one that thinks this is messed up. Looking back now, I imagine his nerves were thanks to my being kin to the prophet. That made marrying me a big responsibility for him, but that thought didn't cross my mind at the time. I got in the truck before Rich did and took my place near the passenger door as I had on the way there. Rich climbed into the truck a minute or so later. I thought I was safe until father came by and put his head in the window. Rachel scooted over. I smiled weakly and shifted myself across the bench seat to the center, but I made sure that I was not touching Rich. Father smiled. That's better. I had never in my life sat that close to a man other than father. I thought Rich could possibly see my heart pounding through my clothing. Ours was the third vehicle in the caravan of six. We drove several miles out of, I'm not sure how to pronounce that actually. Caliente, I think. We drove several miles out of Caliente before I summoned the nerve to speak. Will you tell me about when you broke your neck? I was relieved my question came out as well as it did, and I hadn't stumbled over my words. Rich looked over me, startled. I don't like to talk about that very much. He paused for a moment, but I think you should hear it. He drove on silently for a bit longer, as though he was working on how to begin. It was May 1998, and flashing red and blue lights appeared in the rearview mirror. Uh-oh. Rich pulled off the road, and Uncle Isaac's voice came over the radio. Tell him that you were just married, and he'll let you go. Rich rolled down his window as the cop walked up. You were going a little fast on the stretch of road. You were doing 65 in a 55 mile per zone hour. I'm sorry, sir, I didn't notice the speed limit change. I can imagine why Rich was distracted. My nerves were so jangled I'd have put the truck in a ditch if I had been driving that day. Well, you be attentive, the cop said, and let us off with a warning. We hadn't had mention we hadn't had to mention the wedding. It's too bad Rachel didn't know that this was wrong. If she did, she could have said something to the police officer. But then again, if it turned out that the cop didn't believe her or there was enough evidence, like, she would be in a world of harm. Back on the road, Rich resumed his story. His Jeep had flipped over because he was driving too fast as he went over a cattle guard on the dirt road. The other guys were okay, but Rich had been knocked out. When he woke up, he realized immediately that something was wrong with his neck. He described the ambulance ride to the hospital. That being flown to a bigger trauma hospital in Salt Lake City, Grandfather Rulon had visited him there, and Rich had been very impressed by the man's greatness. When Rich talked about his lowest time in the hospital, when he wondered if he would ever be himself again, he put his hand on my knee. His touch was gentle, but my skin seemed to burn under his fingers, and I started to tremble. Rich must have sensed my nerves because he returned his hand to the steering wheel. I let out a breath and my muscles slowly relaxed. I didn't understand why his touch affected me so, and I sadly found it hard to focus on his story. I had to force myself to pay attention. Does your neck still bother you, son? They had to fuse some of the vertebrae. Rick demonstrated that he could turn his head only so far. And once in a while, it reminds me I need to exercise it more, but for the most part, I feel surprisingly well. The doctor said it would affect me more than it has. The whole account made me feel tender toward him, but I didn't dare express it. As we continued on our journey, Rich shared some other experiences, and he talked about his testimony, how he believed my grandfather Rulon was a true prophet of God. I believe that Rich's heart was good and sincere. My my tongue also felt looser, and I asked him more questions that he freely answered. By the end of the drive, I didn't feel nervous anymore. Maybe I would grow to love this man I was sitting so close to. My emotions were all weird and mixed up, and I couldn't place or understand them. But somewhere in the maelstrom, I felt a spark of hope. Now we're on chapter 8. This one is titled Love, plural style. I can't believe in some states that this is legal. I don't get it. Like the Browns moved so that it would be legal. I've never actually looked up if it is legal in Canada. I should probably do that. Oh, I was told. So somebody had messaged me and said there was an actual cult in my surrounding area. I'm like, "What? Really?" So, I'm gonna try and find out more about that. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do, but I'd like to know who's involved, what's going on, what it just I need who, what, where, when, why. I need to know the facts. The winner forced into marriage to their uncles and bro oh my god. Yeah, I did see that and read some of that, yeah. Ugh. As Rich and I arrived back in Short Creek shortly before sunset, I could feel my nerves start to dance again. The familiar road into town suddenly felt unfamiliar. Instead of making a left toward Father's house, where my family was, Rich turned right. I wondered who would be sleeping in my old bedroom now that Becky and I were both married. I wondered if Becky would be all right tonight. I highly doubt Becky would be all right for a long time. Our house is quite small for 3 ladies and 3 children. Rich said. He was smiling, but I heard trepidation in his voice. It's not like anything that you were used to living in. That's fine, I said. I thought it couldn't be too bad. He did so much for grandfather and father. I was sure they would give him a nice house. But as we drove up to his home, I was in for a surprise. Surely, Rich Allred did not live in a place like this. The tiny house was run down and shabby, the yard an unlandscaped mess with horses and cows wandering around free. I tried to hide my disappointment as best I could, as Rich walked me up the steps to the front door and opened it. Netta, here's your new mother, Rich said. I couldn't even imagine that, just being that child hearing, here's your new mommy. Oh my, I would freak out. Her name is Mother Rachel. 2-year-old Janetta ran over and hugged me around the legs. Rich then introduced me to his ladies, Trish and Molly, and he showed me his 2 little babies, Brianna, Joy, and Sarah. They were both 4 months old. Trish and Molly both hugged me and did their best to welcome me and act excited when I was there. But no wife is happy when her husband brings a new one home. And it was already cramped before I showed up. Rich took me downstairs to show me around. "This is my room," he said. "The room upstairs is the ladies'. You can put your things in here for now until we get more space." There was a single dresser, and he let me use one drawer. I took in my new home. The wood in the walls was rotting. The bedrooms were tiny, even Rich's. The main living area consisted of a small kitchen with dark brown cabinets, cracked brown linoleum on the floor, and a small living room with faded blue carpet. As the daughter of Warren Jeffs, not to mention the granddaughter of Rulon Jeffs, the prophet, I was probably spoiled. I had everything I ever wanted. I had been so blessed until now that this seemed almost a humiliation to me. I brought only a small suitcase with a change of clothes and some personal care items. We would be going to father's the next day to get the rest of my things. I stowed my few belongings and went back upstairs. "Let's go over to father's," Rich said. The family piled into his truck and we drove over to the Allred's house. Everyone seemed surprised and pleased to see us. I recognized a few people, but I didn't know anyone personally except some of the children, whom I had taught in third grade. We were invited to stay for dinner, which Rich gladly accepted. We sat down to a meal of baked potatoes and salad, but I wasn't at all hungry. "Rachel, eat something," Rich said. I had just taken an oath to obey him, so I dished a small portion of salad onto my plate and forced myself to eat it while I listened to the family talk. When we got back to our tiny house, I wondered how I would ever be able to call this place home. If I ran home to father, he would only send me back. I knew I had to squelch my arrogance and accept my situation. That evening, Rich gathered his family for prayer. We knelt and Rich prayed. When we got off our knees, Rich said, "Rachel, come with me." We went downstairs. I knew that the real time to be scared had arrived. Rich shut the oh boy. Rich shut the bedroom door behind me and invited me to get ready for bed. I went into the bathroom, put my nightgown and on my nightgown and robe. I sat on the bed while Rich used the bathroom. When he came out, he said, "Feel free to sleep however you want. You don't have to get under the blanket." My muscles unclenched. I'm sure Rich could see the relief on my face. We each said our personal prayers, and then he got under the blanket, and I lay awake shivering on top. Around 2 a.m., my new husband began to snore. A lot of inbreeding. I have heard that too, and I've read some things. Yeah, just awful. So that's good. She didn't have to consummate the marriage that first night. I'm sure if Jeff, her father, finds out, though, he's gonna, rip her head off. The next day, Rich took me to the two fathers to gather my belongings. Becky was there with her man for the same reason, and my big sisters, Marianne and Sandra, happened to be there too. While Becky and I were in our room packing, Marianne and Sandra came in and shut the door. They looked at each other, half smiling and expectant. "Do you girls know how you start out with a baby?" Marianne said. I was taken aback. Neither Marianne nor Sandra were the kind of girls to ever talk of such things. "Yes, we do," I said. "Are you sure, like really truly?" "Yes, really truly, we know," Becky said. "Becky has asked me about it 3 years earlier, and I had told her because I didn't want father to put her through what I had gone through when he was teaching me." "Good, because if you didn't, we were going to tell you," Sandra said. "I was scared of my husband for a long time when you told me about it. I didn't want you to feel like that." "Thank you for looking out for us," I said. "That is kind of you. That is kind of you." Later, Rich hauled my boxes and bins out to the truck. I wondered where he was going to put everything. He ended up loading most of it into the small rec room in the basement and a few things in his room. That night, I decided I didn't want to freeze like I had the first night, so I got underneath the blanket. I thought hard about the question father instructed me to ask Rich. I hadn't found the courage the first night, but I wanted to keep my word to father because I still felt the need to obey him, although I feared Rich would think my question idiotic. I took a deep breath, thinking about how to ask. The words wouldn't come. Then I simply said, "Father told me to ask you for a baby, but I wasn't brave enough to ask you last night." I sensed him startle in the dark. "Do you even know how to start out with a baby?" I told him what I told Marianne that I did. Rich was quiet for a minute, then said, "Rachel, ask me when you truly want one." Oh, that must be so much relief. Wow. Well, I didn't really want to go through the torture of asking again. I was grateful for the reprieve. No matter what father wanted, I wasn't ready. "Do you want to help me in the yard?" Rich asked after breakfast the next morning. "Yeah." She's got 2 other he's got 3 wives now, including her, so there's 3, and 2 babies and a toddler. That's not Rachel's. There didn't seem to be much of a yard from what I had seen so far, but we went outside together anyway, with little Netta tagging along. There were a few large trees, their leaves still on the ground from the previous autumn. Rich went to the shed and brought out 2 rakes. "You can start in that corner," I said. He said, not I said. I was thinking over my new situation while I raked, annoyed that I couldn't organize my thoughts and feelings. I was weighing how I felt about my current circumstances, having no room of my own, stuck in a junky house, how different it felt to spend time with a man I didn't know, and trying to figure out my role as a sister wife. I paused at one point to watch Rick work. He got the hose out and started watering the trees, and I turned back to raking. Then suddenly I felt water on my back. I quickly turned around to face him. "What are you doing?" I said, backing away. "I just thought you might want a little watering." He was wearing a mischievous smile. I dropped my rake and ran across the yard, grabbing the hose into a big kink. Rich ran after me and tackled me to the ground. "What makes you think you can do that?" I said. "What makes you think I can't?" he said, his smile widening. Yeah, she did. She laughed. Yeah. I dropped my rake and ran across the yard, grabbing the hose into. Oh, I just read that. I tried to get up, but he held me fast. I reached with my one free hand and grabbed the hose to spray him a little, but he grabbed it back and sprayed me again. We tussled hard for about 15 minutes. I didn't want him to think I was a weakling. Both of us were pretty wet and cold by the time we stopped. Yeah, because that's what this whole book is about, breaking free. And she did. I'm so happy she did. "Did I hurt you?" he asked as I sat on the wet grass defeated. "Not at all," I said with a smile. He pulled me up onto my feet and gave me a hug. I squeezed him back and then looked up to his eyes. "Next time," I said with a chuckle, "it won't be so easy for you." He laughed and said, "We'll see." When we took grandfather on his drive later that afternoon, I felt a warmth of growing between Rich and me. "How old are you?" I asked Rich on the drive. "I just turned 25 in January. How old do you think I was?" "Not 25. I've never seen a man your age with 3 wives and 3 children already." Hi, Benita. Rich smiled. "I'm just a little boy who does what he's told." "How old do you think I was?" I asked. "Younger than 18, 16 maybe." "Do I act young?" "No, I just knew you were way too good for me. You and your sisters always had your noses in the air when anyone came around." "Hey, Missy." We've always had each other for company, so we didn't try to befriend anyone else. We were actually the shy ones. At this, Rich smiled and took my hand and placed it on his thigh, keeping his hand on top of mine for the rest of the ride. I liked how it felt. No more jitters. So she's getting comfortable now. I mean, I haven't read this whole book, but I'm assuming he is a decent person, even though he believes all this shit. But for him to say, like, if you're not ready for a baby right now, we're not having a baby right now. Like, I don't know, I just my sister wives didn't know that although I was sharing her husband's bed some nights, nothing intimate was happening. Rich never pressured me or attempted to touch me in a sexual way until I was ready. I feel so much better, like, reading that than what I was assuming. Still, I could feel a lot of tension filling that little house. If I touched any of Rich's laundry or anything else that belonged to him, the sister wives were quick to let me know that that was their job and I wasn't supposed to touch his things. A lot of times, they ignored me or acted like I wasn't even in the room. The worst times were the mornings after I had slept with Rich. His other wives were quick to say spiteful things to me, ignore me, or say rude things about me to Rich in my hearing. I was thrown by how unkind they were to me, especially since it was up to Rich to decide which wife shared his bed on any given night. To make matters worse, on nights when I didn't share Rich's bed, I slept on a ratty secondhand couch in the living room outside his bedroom. I really hated it, and it made me feel like I did not belong there. But there was nowhere else for me to go. That Friday evening, while Rich and the family were sitting in the living room, I took the cordless phone outside to call my sister Sandra. As soon as she answered, I started crying. "Are you okay?" Father said. His kind tone made me cry harder, but I managed to choke out, "Yes, I think so." "Tell me about your new home," he said. I told him that I slept on a couch because there were only 2 bedrooms. That's the thing. So he's Warren Jeffs, he's the son of the prophet, soon to be prophet. So wouldn't he want to marry his daughter to somebody who doesn't live in a shack where there's no room and she only gets a drawer for her belongings, a shit yard, and I don't know, it's weird. If he has, if Jeff has the choice to marry whoever. It's so confusing and gross. For three ladies and three children, we better do something about that. I'll talk to Rich tomorrow. Well, I just answered my own question then, so he didn't know. Thank you, I said between sobs. Rachel, be strong. It's okay to cry, but make sure you smile afterward and remember, I love you. Hey, Brenda. Thank you for mentioning my channel in your video today. That was awesome. Thank you. It's weird how we are all told the wives are not consensual. Exactly. Yeah. Never was consensual. Exactly. I'm just glad she wasn't forced on the first night and he actually knew she was scared and didn't hassle her about it. So I think maybe she got a good one, if that makes sense, even though they're all not good. The next night, Rich invited me to join him while he did night watch at grandfather's. His job was to walk through the house and across the property, checking the gates and watching the security cameras to be sure there were no intruders. I couldn't say yes fast enough to his invitation. I was homesick and wanted to see my family. I need to talk to mother, I said when we got there. Can I run down to father's house? If you promise that you'll come back and that you'll still like me, I promise. Rich looked so intently at me. It was like he was looking nearly through me. Come here for a second. I walked over to him and he picked up a pen from the desk. He took my arm and pushed up my sleeve a little. He wrote on my skin, I love you. He looked up at me and smiled. I left the room feeling slightly loved, but it didn't change my mind. I ran down the path to father's house. I was happy to be in familiar territory again. Are you hungry, Mother Nicole? One of father's young wives from Canada. It's crazy. I'm Nicole and I'm from Canada. That's different. So Mother Nicole, one of Father's young wives from Canada, said as I walked through the kitchen on my way to Mother's room. Yes, I realized I was famished. I hadn't been able to eat much around Rich. Mother Nicole laughed. I'll warm up some spinach casserole for you. I ran up to Mother's room. I felt such a relief as I sat down on the couch. Sat down on her couch. I'm glad to see you, my mother said. What is that writing on your arm? I thought I had it covered with my sleeve. I felt my face get a little hot as I held out my arm so she could see, and she smiled. Soon Angela and Melanie joined us, and Mother Nicole brought up my food, which I ate eagerly between conversations. I felt so warm and comfortable, I didn't want to leave. Mother, may I use your phone? I called the living room desk extension in Grandfather's house where Rich was stationed. Can I sleep down here at Father's tonight? Do you not want to come home? I just feel like sleeping here. Rich was quiet for a minute, then said, Come up and talk to me. So I headed back to grandfather's. Is there something I can do for you? Rich said with concern in his voice. I don't know. I couldn't explain my mixed emotions, and I didn't want to cry in front of him. I really had no idea if he could help me or not. Rich pulled me to him and kissed me slightly on the lips, and then let go. You can sleep at your father's house tonight. In the morning, Rich picked me up to drive me home. On the way, he turned to me and said, Don't let what the other ladies think or say bother you. If you know within yourself that you are doing what I want you to do and that you love them, what they think or say shouldn't affect you. Heavenly Father's peace will be with you, and you live to do His will. It wasn't until that moment that I understood that he recognized at least part of what I was struggling with. I want to be everyone's friend. I can see that you do, Rachel, but you have to remember, this is new for them too. Your uncle nephew told me at our wedding, you're not really living plural marriage until you have three ladies. That is when the real tests come. So give the other ladies room to grow and learn. They want to make this work just like you and I do. We have to have open hearts and have to be full of love. Okay, I said in a whisper. Sorry. Okay, said in a whisper, tears threatening to return. Then my husband put his arm around me and pulled me closer. After family prayer that morning, Rich said, Let's spend the morning together, all of us. We can have a picnic in the creek somewhere. Can you ladies get lunch ready? I was grateful that he was making an effort to keep the peace. Tris went to the store to purchase a few items, while Molly and I got the girls ready. We drove down to the creek, and Rich chose a nice sandy area for the picnic while Trish and I made sandwiches. After we'd all eaten, Rich took off his shoes and socks and stood up. Come on, Rach, take off your shoes and socks. You've got to feel the sand between your toes. What if I don't want to? Then I will help you, he said, and grabbed my foot. Rich took off my shoes and socks, picked me up, and carried me to the middle of the creek bed. I tried to wrestle away, but he was much stronger than me. We ran through the creek bed with Netta and Molly. Rich grabbed a handful of sand and put it down Molly's back, which started quite a sand fight. I backed off, not wanting sand down my pants. I still have the tickles in my throat, and my voice goes out and out, and I still have the sniffles. Takes forever to go over this. When we started thoroughly sanded and when we were thoroughly sanded and sunburned, and the baby started wailing, we packed up and headed home. As Rich drove us home, I looked at the window and thought, we can have fun, all of us together. Maybe life as a pro wife wouldn't be so bad. Oh, geez. Now we're on chapter 9. This is called The Prophet Rises. It took me 2 months to summon up the nerve to ask Rich for a baby for real. I wasn't in love with him yet, but I did feel attracted to him. I thought if I had a baby with him, I'd feel love for him, although I didn't even know what that meant to be in love with someone. As Rich was leaving to do night watch at grandfather's one evening, I said, "Can I come with you? I need to talk to you." Rich hesitated for a moment, knowing that his other wives would be angry if he let me come. The picnic had not erased it. Or what the hell does that say? Oh, the picnic had not erased the animosity my sister wives felt toward me or made them treat me any nicer. Sneak out to my truck, Rich said. I knew sneaking was unnecessary. Our house was so small. It wouldn't take long for the other ladies to notice I was missing. So I just walked out the front door, wondering why he couldn't be a man about what he wanted to do. Father never cared what his wives thought of him. If he chose to favor one life, he did, so openly in front of the whole family. It was no secret which of his wives were his favorites. Father was like a king in his household, and the women bowed to his every command. They stood around, eager for the privilege of handing him his spoon or washing the table after he'd finished eating. It was the highest honor to be the wife chosen to make his meal. Gross. I feel a hell of a lot better. It's just taken a long time to get rid of it fully. Rich didn't come out of the house for half an hour. I knew he was trying to make the other ladies feel okay about his taking me with him, giving them a little extra attention so they would feel special. There's a big learning curve. Living polygamy. As a sister wife, you might sleep with your husband one night out of 6, or 14, or 90, depending on your husband's whim, which was also on the night watch a lot, so that reduced the opportunity as well. The church teaches that it is a good for a man to have multiple wives, so you cannot be angry at him for sleeping with his other wives. Living polygamy, you have to let go of your selfishness regarding your husband. You have to control the jealousy that naturally comes to us, not only because we are taught that jealousy is a grievous sin, but because it will make you crazy. But even though I grew up in this lifestyle and I was used to it, once it became my reality as a sister wife, I realized how hard it was. It took me an hour to finally tell Rich what I wanted that night. Really? Are you sure? He said. I'm sure. Whew. Rich was very pleased with my request and happy to oblige. Yeah, of course he was. He kept me with him for several nights in a row after that, trying for a baby. I found it very painful at first, despite my past sexual experience. I had never done this part of it before. I was very scared and tense in the beginning, which probably made it even worse. I wanted to keep as many of my clothes on as a possible on as possible, and Rich was kind and let me do as I pleased. Life with my husband's other ladies got much harder then. Trish and Molly started to accuse Rich of favoritism and would try to get in the way of our budding relationship. Nights when Rich called me to his room, the other ladies would suddenly need to speak to him about a very urgent matter. Sometimes they would put little Netta to sleep in Rich's room so that nothing could happen between us. More than once, one of them would bang on the window so hard I thought the glass would break. At times, I was angry that Rich allowed his other ladies to get between us. Yeah, it's like, no, you don't share your husband. Why wouldn't one of those girls say, well, if you can, if we have to share you, you're going to share us? But I know that would never work out. But so many things run through my head and I want to snap back at them even though I'm not there. And then despite all their efforts, I was pregnant. Oh, I'd been with my husband only 3 times. That's all it took. The church forbids husbands from having relations with a pregnant wife? What the fuck? So once my sister wives learned I was carrying a child, they stopped being jealous and mean to me because they had him to themselves for the duration. Wow. By then, we had moved out of the tiny house that Rich had brought me to after our wedding. Father had taken my complaint about our cramped living situation seriously, for which I was very grateful. We were temporarily living in the basement apartment in Rich's father's house until a new house was built for all of us. The Allred house was fairly new, and the basement had 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, so all of us ladies had our own rooms and we weren't in one another's business so much. But the jealous wives still kept close tabs on Rich, which was easy to do because the bathroom adjacent on Rich's room had 2 entrances. One from the bedroom and one from the hall. So whenever he was showering with one of the wives, anyone listening at the door could hear them talking. I spent most of my time in my own room since the apartment lacked a central living area. I liked having my own space and it was comfortable. Father had bought a bedroom set for me because Rich couldn't afford one. So I had a queen size bed, a nice oak dresser with a large mirror, and a nightstand. It was a lot better than the ratty old couch. One night in the late summer, when I was about 4 months along, Rich came by my room to say goodnight. We lay on the floor, talking. My feelings for him had grown a lot, and I had learned to trust him. So when he asked me that night how I knew about sex, I decided it was time to finally tell someone. I didn't dare share any details, not even how long it had gone on, because I feared what his reaction might be. I kept it short and vague, but it was enough. So she told her husband about her father. Good on her. Rich immediately stood up and left the room without saying anything. Wow. I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. I lay on my bed and thought, Rachel, you should have just kept quiet. I tried to make myself go to sleep, but I couldn't because I was worried about Rich was thinking about me after what I had told him. A few hours later, Rich came back to my room and locked the door. He got undressed and then he undressed me. What? Yeah, I can understand the negativity and the jealousy and stuff. I was assuming, but it's just for the husband. It's not even for the who she is. But yeah, I agree. So it makes them get naked. Then he says, "If you weren't pregnant right now, I would be with you." Rich held me close for a while, and I cried against his bare shoulder. It felt good to even get a tiny bit of my childhood hurt out. "But Rachel, please don't say any more," he said. "I don't want to know because it will be too hard on my testimony of your father," meaning his belief that father was a good and honorable priesthood man who stood next to the prophet. Should have friggin' told somebody. Then again, this rich guy has now 3 wives, so obviously thinks it's okay. The next evening, Rich called me from grandfather's house where he was on watch. "I wrote a letter to your father about what you told me." Oh, shit. Oh my God. "He wants to see us in his office right now." My blood went cold. Oh, yeah. Father would be angry that I had told, and I didn't want to face him. But as always, I had no choice. I got in our family beater car and drove up to grandfather's. When I got there, Rich took my hand and walked me to father's office. "Richard, please close the door," father said, and he gestured for us to take a seat. He gave me a look filled with hurt, as though to say, "How could you do this to me?" More like, "How could you do that to your own daughter?" I looked down at my feet. Father still had full control over my life, and this betrayal surely meant he would never treat me the same again. He could do with me what he chose. After a silence that seemed to last forever, father said, "I always knew that I would one day have to talk to Rachel's husband about my relationship with her. And yes, I confess, ew, that in teaching Rachel, I got too close to her. I ask for your forgiveness. Just know I am here to do my father's will." Teaching. That's what that was. Father shook both our hands and opened his office door. "Thank you," Rich said to father as we walked out. I said nothing. When we got in the truck, Rich said, "Rachel, we have to trust that he is." Oh my We have to trust that he is in a leading position for a reason. I don't ever want to question him again. So let's not talk about this. So her father is raping her. Well, I guess not. Sorry, it fully didn't happen. He's abusing her. And you're okay with that? This is sick. As it was my duty to obey my husband, I merely nodded my head. What small relief I felt confiding in Rich quickly faded. A couple of things changed for Rich and me after that meeting with Father. The first affected Rich. Father made sure to make Rich feel needed and important to him, keeping him close by his side always, first as a counselor and then by making him a bishop, a leader in the church. The second affected me from then on. I was largely kept away from my own family. Months, sometimes years, would pass when I didn't have any contact with my closest sisters. Father required us to live states apart with no freedom to visit, write, or talk to one another. Son of a bitch. I just want to hug her. Tell her everything's gonna be okay. I couldn't imagine what she's still dealing with. Grandfather Roland was admitted to the hospital on the evening of September the 7th, 2002, with an intestinal blockage that required surgery. By then, he was 86 years old and frail. Rich and I joined Father and a few other family members, Mother Mary, Uncle Niffy, Uncle Isaac, and one of Isaac's ladies in the waiting room early the next morning, waiting for word from the surgeon. Father told us to pray and fast for grandfather to be healed. Finally, the surgeon came out and reported that grandfather was very weak after the surgery and they weren't sure he was going to pull through. He's going to make it, Father said. Make sure he makes it. Around noon that day, the doctors reported the grandfather was failing. You must do CPR, Father said. The medical team, doctors, and nurses and technicians worked for nearly an hour trying to save grandfather. Father insisted they kept going. Father had promised the people many times that grandfather would be renewed and become a young man again in his life. And when that happened, Father said, we, the people, had better be prepared for the great lifting up with the destructions would cover the land and only the righteous would remain. Oh my effing gosh. Shut up. This is blasphemy meant for wow. We were with grandfather in the ICU when he died that afternoon. I thought he died at home. I thought Roland was home when he died. Yeah, because he had a stroke at 86. Or was it? Yeah, he had a stroke, and that left him so he couldn't really say anything, so he couldn't talk or anything, and he was very weak, and people had to literally take him to the bathroom. They had a bathroom, they had to like feed him, whatever. And then he ended up dying. Yeah, he ended up dying at the home, I thought. Hmm. Rich and I joined Father and a few other family members. Mother, oh, I just read that. Sorry. Father cried. I'd never seen Father cry before. It was Sunday, so the people in Short Creek had gathered at the meeting house. Father called over there to announce grandfather's passing. The members of the FLDS had been told that their leader would never die, that his renewal was necessary for their survival. Instead, now they would have to follow another. Father had been acting leader of the church ever since grandfather's stroke oh, okay, that just answered my question. Well, still, I thought he died at home, but yeah, maybe not. So father had been acting leader of the church ever since grandfather's stroke 4 years earlier. So the transition was perhaps less jarring than it might have been. Father had been making decisions and arranging marriages all that time with grandfather's counsel, as he was careful in announcing that he was their new leader, relying on the testimony of his brothers and grandfather's wives to tell them. But there was a catch. We had been taught that an apostle, like grandfather, had to name the next apostle, and grandfather had never ordained father to the apostleship. And the people knew this. As always, father had an explanation for everything. Not long after grandfather's passing, father told the people God had come into father's bedroom and ordained him an apostle himself. That bedroom is considered sacred to this day. I hadn't forgotten what father said to me at Uncle Roy's funeral when I was a little girl. The prophet is the greatest man on earth. The prophet is the only man worthy of hearing God's word. I knew father wasn't a good enough man. Soon after that, father went on the run. Ooh, this is getting good. Now we're on part two. I don't know if I should. Let me see how long this is. Oh yeah, this chapter is like really long. All right, I'll read some of it. So we're on chapter 10. This one's called Plural Wife. After a half century during which the world mostly left our people alone, in 2003, the state of Utah started prosecuting FLDS members for bigamy and underage sex. As a leader of the church and the person who performed most of the marriages, Father knew they'd be coming after him soon enough, so he started looking for new homes for our people far from Short Creek. Father often brought Rich and me with him on these travels. At first, we stayed mostly really? Okay, I watched the documentary and it's the book is so much different. Usually books tell more, um, and you learn more, you know what I mean? Whereas the documentary actually tells me feels like it's telling me more than the book, which is different. I've never had that. So Father often brought Rich and me with him on these travels. At first, we stayed mostly in Utah, but we began going farther and farther away to remoter locations in other states. We'd stay at different hotels and motels. Rich or one of Father's other bodyguards would get a room, and then Father would go in the back door to avoid being seen. It was hard being on the road as my pregnancy progressed. Yeah, see, I didn't even that wasn't even in the okay, so that wasn't in the documentary. So I'm learning that, but she wasn't in the documentary, so that Keep Sweet one, she wasn't even in it. But spending so much time with my husband without the distraction of the other ladies brought us even closer together. The last time I went with Rich and Father on one of these scouting trips, we stayed at the Residence Inn in Durango, Colorado. How long until your due date? Father asked me at breakfast in the hotel restaurant. He couldn't help but notice the size of my belly by then. 3 weeks. He sat back with a surprised look on his face. We better get you back. You don't want to have your baby in a hospital. I'd actually like to have my baby in a hospital, I thought, but Father's family were required to have their babies at home with an uncertified nurse midwife, whom we called grandmother Sharon. She had delivered me 19 years earlier. I'm okay, I told Father. I haven't had any signs yet. Nevertheless, we made the 6 hour drive back to Short Creek the next day. When I went into labor a few weeks later, Rich took me up to grandfather's house to deliver the baby. He told me he'd asked his other two ladies, Trish and Molly, to be there too, which made me really unhappy. My sister wives still didn't care for me, and I didn't know how they would feel about my baby. The labor was difficult and long, and I had a large audience, which only made it worse. Aside from my sister wives and Rich, 3 of the father's ladies, plus my mother and grandmother, Marilyn, were all watching me. I felt like I was putting on a performance for them and doing it badly. My baby was crowned for 3 hours, but I couldn't seem to push her out. Surely they'll take me to the hospital soon, I thought. Unbeknownst to me at the time, father was just outside the door. Oh, watching as well? And he told Rich to ask my sister wives to leave. I don't know how he had the awareness to do that, but it seemed to relieve some of the tension I was feeling. After they left, I was finally able to push the baby out, although not without tearing myself so badly that I needed 40 stitches to put me back together. Holy crap, girl. I loved being a new mother. My baby daughter was everything to me. She was beautiful, cheerful, and good-natured. As father's third grandchild, she got a lot of love and attention from father's family, but I was not allowed to name her. That's some bull crap too. Father chose his grandchildren's names, and a week after she was born, he gave her a blessing and named her Barbara Ann Jeffs after my mother. Years earlier, I had to say to my mother, I love you, but I don't love your name. So I will probably never name any of my children after you. I looked over at mother during the blessing and tried to smile, but she knew I was disappointed. Immediately after the ceremony, I let it be known that I would call my daughter Barbie because Barbara seemed too long a name for a tiny baby. This is crazy. Yes, I agree. There's so many rules, and then, but when Jeff becomes prophet, because he thinks he is, he everything goes even worse. But these idiots still follow him. 2 weeks after Barbie was born, Rich came to my room. The new house that Rich had built for a growing family was a major improvement over the crummy old one. This one had 8 bedrooms. Holy shit. So we adults each had our own room with a private bath, and Rich let us choose the carpet for our rooms. Mine was rose pink. I have a strong feeling that we should be together now that you have had your baby, Rich said. I was lying on my bed, resting, still sore from the delivery. The stitches had only recently come out, and I was just starting to heal, but I didn't dare tell him no. Oh, so I went with him to his room. Sex was agony, but he didn't seem to notice. Rachel, I love you so much. I just wanted to show you, my husband said. What a fucker. Her stitches had just, wow. So he's just as bad as the rest of them. I have no idea. I think it's because it was a rule stated way back when Rulon was prophet before he died. It's because of that rule, they like to keep the rules from way back when. But when it comes to Warren Jeffs, the new prophet, he likes to make his own rules, and the idiots follow. I don't understand that because he does make his own rules. It's disgusting, the stuff that he fucking did. I can't believe this. In April 2003, I went to father's house to find Rich. All the family members I encountered looked at me with sad expressions. What's the big deal? I wondered. Rachel, you need to go talk to father, one of his wives said. I walked down to father's room and knocked on the door. Come in, he said, and I sat down at the end of the bed. What can I do for you? I was told I need to come see you, I said. Father sat there for a moment before he said, it looks like your mother has breast cancer. A doctor has confirmed it. I bolted from father's room and ran up to mother's room where I found her lying in bed. Barbie was only 2 months old, and I had spent most of my time recently with her, so I hadn't seen how ill my mother had become. I was only 19, and my mother was 38. She had a 2-year-old baby herself. Mother told me that she had noticed the lump in her breast 2 years before, but father told her not to worry about it. Of course he did. After the cancer had grown considerably, father finally let her get it looked at by a doctor. No one in the family went to the doctor without father's permission. The doctor had just confirmed her diagnosis. He told mother that her condition was already terminal and gave her 6 months to live. He could have helped, but of course not, right? Gotta listen to the fucking prophet. Father told her to have the chemotherapy anyway. In the weeks that followed, I accompanied mother to her chemo appointments, but it seemed like all the medicine did was make her get sicker and lose her hair. Still, father insisted she continue. What a bastard. She would have died in agony. When Barbie was 3 months old, Rich was called on a special mission by father. Rich was sworn to secrecy, so he wouldn't even tell his own family. He was gone for weeks, sometimes a month at a time. When he came home, he'd be dressed like a Gentile. Whatever Rich had been doing, it was clear that it had been important to blend in with the outside world. So basically, what I learned what a Gentile was like you and me, not them dressing in these dresses with those huge, what the hell do you call them? Like those big white flaps here. I don't remember what they're called, but they all dress the same. Blah. Whatever Rich had been doing, it was clear that he had been important to blend in with the outside world. Once Rich came home with a stylish beard and a mustache, a knit shirt, and a cool hat. I loved it. You look awesome. Oh, you think so, do you? Rich said, and pulled me into his arms, tickling me. I laughed and tried to squirm away from him. I was still negotiating the challenges of being a plural wife. When I was with Rich, I felt that we had the special kind of husband and wife attachment, that he was truly my best friend. When we spent time with, yeah, a nice best friend to allow what happened or to ignore what happened to her in childhood from her own damn father. When he spent time with his other wives, I felt as though he had betrayed that friendship. I'm sure the other ladies felt the same. I'm sure they also wanted to take advantage of the time they got with their husband. Every time Rich and I were together, I wanted him to prove all over again that he loved me as much as he said he did. I'm sure all the plural wives want to be the special one, the one the husband loves more than all the rest. Life with my sister wives was especially challenging during this period. Rich was home for such a short time between trips away, and all the ladies wanted a piece of him. That sounds so bad. I had an outside door to my room, and sometimes Rich used to sneak in and spend the night with me without the other ladies knowing. I felt a little bad for my sister wives because I knew I wouldn't like to be left out, but I was also glad that Rich chose to make me feel special and wanted. Hey, SD. In August 2003, Rich sought me out in my room. Go ask your father what you need to do so you can come on this special mission with me, he said. He keeps telling me he's going to have you come with me. I still didn't know what this mission was. I don't dare, I said. I know father. He doesn't like people to ask him for a blessing. Rachel, just obey me and go ask. Oh, I hate that. Obey me. I tried to avoid it for a few days, but Rich kept telling me to ask Father, so I finally went up to Father's house and asked if I could speak with him. Yeah, and the hats were called something too. The white stuff on here, you know what I mean? It's like a huge white collar, but it's not called a collar, it's something else. But all the women dressed like that, like the same colors. And then when they went to the new place he built, Zion, they all had to wear pastel colors. The women would wear pastel dresses. Yeah. Rich wants me to ask what I need to do to be the worthy to go with him. Father scowled. You never ask the priesthood for a blessing. You always wait for it to be offered. It was exactly what I expected. I would suffer the consequences of my request soon enough. In November of that same year, Father announced the Lord had given him a new revelation. Father was to take all of his underage children to a special place in Texas that the Lord called Land of Refuge, which was just designated only for the more worthy of his people. I later learned that Father had found a property in El Dorado, Texas, a state where the age of consent for marriage was only 14 at the time. That was in the documentary, and that really pissed me off. Can you imagine 14 years old and getting married? You just barely get your period. Father had instructed David Albright, Rich's brother, and my sister Becky's husband to purchase the land for the church. There, Father had ordered construction of what would become the Yearning for Zion Ranch. No, that obey word can get the hell out of the vocabulary, right? Like, no. Father himself would never live there or anywhere full time since he was always on the move evading the law. Mother Annette told his girls that Father gathered all the mothers of the children in the office to break the news. The Lord had directed me to move my children to the sacred land. Oh my God, I'm so itchy. And I don't know why. I think it's allergies. I do have those, but so Mother Annette told us girls that Father gathered all the mothers of his children in his office to break the news. The Lord has directed me to move my children to a sacred land. He has also shown me that none of you are worthy to go. Yeah, so at this point in time, he literally took all these kids from their mothers and put them on the Zion Ranch. So they would be without their children, never see them. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be months, just depends on who we picked at that time. It was and they listened. They agreed with it. I just talk about mind control. He has also shown me that none of you are worthy to go. The mothers would have to prove themselves before they would move. In their stead, Father selected several of his wives, who were not the mothers, to take care of the children. Why the childless wives were more worthy than the mothers was a mystery. One of the wives actually was trying to figure out, how can I please, the prophet to let me go be with my children? She's like, I'm a bit overweight, so I'm going to get skinny. She actually got skinnier and he picked her to go on the ranch. It was like, wow. All right, you have a good night. I'm not going to be too much longer. While the childless wives were more than worthy, the mothers was a mystery. My mother, stricken by what this meant for her, given her cancer diagnosis, stood up and threw her arms around Father. Warren, then I will never see my children again. Five of mother's younger children would be sent away. My littlest sister Amber was just 2, and my little brother Joseph was 4. How could you do that to somebody? They're dying and you take their kids away? Father, seemingly unmoved, said, "This is the Lord's will. This is what he wants me to do." I was furious at father and sad for my mother. As a mother myself by then, I knew how angry and hurt I would be if he had taken away my children. Melanie and I, who were mother's 2 oldest girls, and our brother Ammon, who was 15, were all she had left, and Melanie and I were both married and living in our husbands' homes. After father sent the children away, I began taking Barbie, who was mother's first grandchild, over to spend time with her every day. Mother loved Barbie and enjoyed reading books to her and singing to her, and I could see she found it a comfort to be with my little girl. Mother put all her love on Barbie to cope with the loss of her own children. Hey, Heavenly Cow. Oh, no worries. You're allowed to be late. I'm doing pretty good. I hope you are too. Still, mother cried a lot and her health declined quickly after her children were taken away. Some of the mothers were reunited with their children within a week. But others, including my mother, hardly ever saw their children again. She wasn't even allowed to talk to them on the phone. Father never visited her either. Wow. And it wasn't because he was always on the road. He had been her husband for more than 20 years, and now it was as though he had put her out of his life. That same month, November 2003, Rich came home with a surprise. He had a new wife. That's four. None of us ladies knew he was getting married again, not even my sister wife Molly, whose own sister Susan was the new bride. That is insane. I didn't know how to feel about the situation. I'd been married to Rich. Oh my God. I think stuff's coming in the air conditioner. Yeah. Yeah. I can't even comprehend it. You know what I mean? Brenda, it's just, I just don't understand. What really pisses me off to this day is Warren is still running this fucking cult. They're saying it's deflated, there isn't as many members, blah, 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 blah. It's not as it used to be, yada, yada, yada. He's still running shit. He shouldn't be allowed to have phone calls. He should not be allowed to have visitors. I've seen the phone calls with him on the phone, telling them what to do. And the police are okay with this? No. I had been married to Rich for a year and 8 months, and I had grown to love him. I went upstairs to my room, took my baby girl in my arms, and cried. I vowed that I would never treat this new wife the way the other ladies treated me. I would treat her kindly even if I didn't like her. But it was weird to think of Rich sleeping with a new girl, one that didn't even love him. Father told Rich to take Susan with him on a mission to the land of the refuge in Texas. Oh, that's gotta hurt. So the new wife gets to go to Zion. I felt betrayed that Rich took someone else, especially after I'd risked Father's anger by asking for a blessing so that I might go with him. As always, I did my best not to show it, since showing feelings like anger and jealousy was a sin. Oh my God. But I know my sister wife Trish felt the same way about not having been chosen. My other sister wife Molly was just glad it was her sister who went and not me. In the coming years, Molly would often lobby Rich to favor her sister over me whenever she could. And then I discovered I was pregnant with my second child. I focused on staying busy. I tried to work harder, be kinder, and love more to prove myself worthy of living with Rich. I saw my mother every day. Molly went to live with Rich in the land of the refuge a month later, leaving just Trish and me with our children in Creek. I got along better with Trish without the others around. In fact, I felt that we were becoming friends, although I knew it was peaceful between us only because Rich wasn't there. Mother continued to get sicker and sicker. In April 2004, Father allowed her two youngest children to come back to Creek to be with her, but she was too weak to do anything with them, let alone care for them. By May, the cancer had spread to her lungs, and she was on oxygen to help her breathe. The Lord showed me that you have humbled yourself enough to be worthy to come to Zion, Father said at last. She would be moved to Texas, land of refuge, to join the rest of her family, but she was in a wheelchair, and the treatment had knocked what life she had left right out of her. Mother, I really want you with me when I have my baby, I told her as we said our goodbyes. Melanie, Amon, and I were not allowed to go with her. We were still unworthy. Mother looked at my belly, which is just starting to get round, then back up at my face. I probably won't be there, she said. Why? Why won't you? She smiled at me through her tears, but said nothing. 2 months later, on July 8th, Father called me. Rachel, your mother is dying. And I didn't hear the words he said after that, only a voice in my head screaming no. Even knowing how sick she already was the last time I saw her, I couldn't accept it. These kind of things don't happen to us, I thought. They happen to other people. I tried to bring myself back to what Father was saying. You are not worthy to go on the land where she lives, but you can come see her while she's in the hospital in San Angelo. Isaac will drive you. I wanted so much to talk to Rich to cry on his shoulder, but that was impossible, as I had no way to reach him. I packed a bag for Barbie and me, which was more difficult than it should have been because at 7 months along in my pregnancy, I felt big and tired. When Uncle Isaac picked me up, he told me I couldn't bring Barbie. But my mother will want to see her as much as me, maybe more. I have to bring her. Your father said she could not come. The fucking balls on this guy, eh? I was heartbroken for my mother. I was also leery of leaving my child with Trish, but I had no choice. It would be the first time I was separated from her since she was born. Isaac had me sit in the back of the SUV with Ammon for the 17-hour drive to the hospital in San Angelo. It was one of the longest, most uncomfortable rides of my life. 3 hours into the journey, father called me on Isaac's cell phone. Is Barbie with you? I burst into tears. No, Isaac said not to bring her. You left your little girl with your sister wife who hates you? Oh, that son of a bitch. Never do that. Call your sister Shirley and have her go get Barbie and take care of her until you return. What? Took me a couple of minutes to get through. And when I did, Shirley had already spoken to father and was on her way to get my daughter. I was still upset at Isaac for not letting me bring her like I wanted, but I felt grateful that father cared about her welfare. Yeah, but isn't father the one who said she couldn't go? So it doesn't make sense. My mother looked like she had aged 40 years in the past few weeks since I'd last seen her. Lying in her hospital bed, she was terribly frail and had a faraway look in her eyes. She was already partway gone on the other side. I didn't want her to see me cry, so I walked over to the window to hide my face until I got control of my emotions. When I calmed down, I went to her bedside. Hi, Mother, this is Rachel. My mother continued to stare ahead. Where's Barbie? She whispered. Oh. I started to cry again. I couldn't bring myself to tell her that I had been forbidden from bringing her namesake grandchild. I sat with her for an hour, and I could see she was failing fast. Uncle Neffy was there with us, and he had made arrangements to have Mother transport her back home, as she expressed her wish to die there. Father called while we were still at the hospital. This is the last time you and your brother will see your mother because you are still not worthy to be in the land of refuge. We would not be allowed to go to her funeral. What a bastard. Amon and I were given a motel room that night, and a ride would come get us the next day. I couldn't sleep. I was devastated. To think I wouldn't see my mother again. I don't think Amon slept a wink either. Every once in a while, I would say, Amon, are you still awake? Yes, he'd say. Then, after some more time passed, Rachel, are you awake? We did that through the night, alone in our grief, knowing that our mother was near the end of her life and we couldn't be with her. Father called in the morning with a new revelation. The Lord showed me that seeing your mother dying has humbled you and Amon enough that you can be trained and then go to your mother. Trained? Trained for what? The war? It was a glimmer of hope, but it meant that Uncle Neffy had to drive us more than 500 miles, an 8-hour journey to Albuquerque, New Mexico to meet Father. It wasn't lost on me that even as Mother was so close to death, Father didn't feel it was important for him to be with her. Wow. It took Father all day to give us the special training in which he instructed us about strict obedience, hard work, no complaining, rising no later than 5 a.m., getting to priesthood trainings on time, no Gentilism of any kind, wearing plain pastel clothing in the house and dark clothing when outside working, no shoes inside. He told us the Lord wanted a temple built in Texas. Father had us covenant to do all the good things and to keep the land of refuge a secret and sacred place. Finally, we were deemed worthy. You think that's the reason why she left? I'm gonna stop there. There's still quite a few pages for this chapter. Ugh. That is the prick with all his children in 1992. He married 12-year-olds. My God. Yeah, I'm just reading her full story now, but I was watching the documentaries and stuff, the Keep Sweet and Obey. That was a hard one to watch. And I'm gonna stop there. I've been on here for a while and I have to use the phone booth. And I don't want to read too much more. I'm starting to get a sore throat. But thank you for joining me. I'll make sure I know what day is Wednesday next week, and I'll go live. So it'll be every Wednesday at 7 p.m. I'll read that book. And I'll keep doing the KJ stuff every day. I don't know if I'm gonna make a video or not tonight. I might just say no. I kind of really don't feel like it, like at all. All right, I'm gonna go. Thank you guys for joining me. I'll keep you guys updated on Key Joy. And I'm gonna have to look and see what those hats were called and what those collars were. Now you wanna buy the book? Yeah. Ooh, what's that one? The Wife on the Run on HBO and the other on Showtime? I'll have to check that out. I love books. I have books, so many. I love them. And I like referring to them whenever, I need to, or I don't know, I'm a bookworm, always have been. That was my favorite thing to do in the summer. All right, you guys have a great night. And I'm sure I'll have another video for tomorrow. I usually do every day. I'm trying to keep it every day because I know if I stop, then it'll be really hard for me to get back on the train. And I'm gonna try and do more lives because I do miss doing that. All right, I'm gonna shut up. You guys have a good night. It is a very interesting story, Teresa. That's why I was glad that it was weird too, because I was talking about calls, and I'm like, hmm. Then I seen it in a bookstore for 50 cents, so I grabbed it. I was like, I heard about this. I want to read this. I just don't like, obviously, reading about the abuse. It's just pissed me off that constant rule change and how people still believe it. All right, I'm gonna shut it. You guys have a great night, and I'm sure I'll be back tomorrow with a video. All right, you guys have a good night.